Hi, hello RodeRunners. I'm Allison Fujito. I'm your host for your introduction to Rode Caprice numero 3, number 3. This is my assistant Milo. He's going to be helping us out today. And before we start, please number your measures. That way when there's questions, we'll all be in the same spot, and that would be good. So, Rode number 3, I hope I'm saying that right, Hervé, has so many technical challenges. Where do we start? There's the fact that the entire thing is in not just one position, but second position. Some people aren't so familiar with second position, and it's also got some awkward finger extensions. And there are bowing challenges too, with oodles of string crossings in quick succession. There are places where the bow distribution is just unfair. And the marking is komodo, which means easy or comfortable. And right now you're all shaking your heads and going, yeah, right, easy, ha. Milo says, it might be easier than you think though. Let's start with second position. Second position in itself doesn't necessarily have to be challenging. If we pay attention to second position the way we've pretty much all along paid attention to third position, that really takes care of it. And there are actually a lot of good studies that can help this in the long term. I don't think they'll help overnight, but there's some things we can do. My two favorite books for working on second position are Sevcik Opus 8, which has a gazillion good finger patterns shifting in and out of every position, including second position. And Hans Sitt, S-I-T-T, Opus, I think it's Opus 32. And what he does is he has a number of etudes in one position. He has actually two books. I think Opus 32 is just second position and third position, and he's got a bunch of etudes in second position and then a bunch of etudes in third position. And before each one, he writes a scale and arpeggio to get your fingers, your four-finger frame set up right for that position in that piece. Another thing we can do is a little more basic and immediate. You can take an easy piece that you already know by heart. The obvious example would be Twinkle, and play it in second position instead of the position you usually play it in. And so if we were to do it, oh great, I've got cat hair on my strings, excuse me. Jeez. Somebody's shedding. If we were gonna do, let's do Twinkle in G major, because this Caprice is in G major. So we'll get the same four-finger frame. So that's a very different finger pattern than what you would do in first position. We can also do just a G major scale in second position. Both of these, did you notice we've got a high finger on a lower string right next to a low second finger, I'm sorry, a low first finger on the next string up. And same thing going from the A string to E string. And to me, that hand frame is the biggest challenge with second position. We don't often see this same pattern in first position, because we often, in first position, we often have an open string we can play instead of fourth finger. You can't do that in second position. In higher positions, we don't have that problem either, because it's a different stretch and for our hand. When we get into higher positions, our hand goes around the shoulder and also up. and sometimes over the shoulder. So if we want to get to the G string, it's less of a stretch here than it would be in first position. So that means that it's really important for us, a lot of us, probably all of us, to stretch. I think it's important to stretch before and after we practice. If you're doing a lot of this, you want to stretch in the opposite direction. And especially if you have small hands, short arms, midget pinky, or if you're just generally, if you've got tightness. And remember also, this position we do with our left arms, this is not a natural position by any stretch of the imagination and for anyone. And this sort of hit home for me a few years ago, well, several years ago actually. I was in an accident. It was actually a hit and run, SUV versus bicycle, and I was on the bicycle. And my left shoulder was pretty badly damaged, and that meant surgery. And also a 1.5 years of physical therapy with 3 different physical therapists. And with the first physical therapist, I tried to show her with my right shoulder what my left shoulder needed to do, because my left shoulder, being badly injured and very painful, could not do it. And I was trying to shoulder with my right arm. This is what my left shoulder needs to do. And this is called external rotation. You also have to do that. And so I was saying, look, I need this much external rotation. I need to get that back. And you guys actually should try this with your right arm, putting your right arm into let's hold the instrument, the position. It feels terrible, right? Have you ever tried this? We're used to it with this hand because we've done it. We've stretched out the necessary ligaments. We haven't done this with the right hand. So when I told the physical therapist this, she looked back at me and said, I can't do that. I don't know if I can promise you that I can get that back for you, because that's not in the standard physical therapy protocol. And obviously I did get it back 3 physical therapists later. The third one was a wonderful physical therapist and basically made up exercises so that I could get this back. One of which, I don't think you actually made it up. I'm sure other people have done this, but it's not part of the normal post-shoulder surgery physical therapy. He had me stretching in a door frame, leaning in to push the arm out. And he also had me doing backstroke in a swimming pool. That was interesting. Anyway, the point is, this is not a natural position. So stretching is really important. And it's also important to keep in mind to stretch softly, if you know what I mean. Not hard. Don't force it. So gently. And this is getting warmed up the same way a gymnast would warm up. We're doing gymnastics with our fingers. So after you're all warmed up, you can start teaching your left hand to be comfortable with this piece. Maybe 4 notes at a time. Don't take too big a chunk to learn. Start slowly and do the notes slowly so that you can hear the beginning and end of each note. Don't rush through this. You want to know that you're not rocking your hand in a way that changes the intonation of one note as you reach for the next. For example, measure 1. Yeah, we don't get very far in this piece before we get to the very first example. Measure 1, beat 2. We have to reach back with our first finger. It feels like a little like you're reaching back. So you have to reach back with the first finger for that G natural and the E string. And then immediately reach up and over with the 4th finger to hit the F sharp and the A string. And what we don't want to hear is this. You can see why we don't want to hear that. We also want to be careful not to pull the string to the side. That's easy to do. Like, for example, I don't know, can you see my fingers well? You don't want the second finger to pull the A string towards the E string, because that changes the intonation too. Or the other way, you don't want to push it towards the D string. So soft fingertips, and coming directly from on top of the string down, not pulling it to the side. Also for this beat, Lynn Kuo came up with something really good. DSO, she calls it, double stop opportunities. And this is a really good opportunity for a double stop. Forces us to keep our fingers honest. I don't think it's possible to actually play that without keeping your fingers soft. And it forces you not to wobble or rock in between notes. So when you see double stop opportunities, take them. That would be very helpful here. So after we're, let's call it, mentally comfortable with second position, we still have 2 pages of fast flowing 16th notes with a million notes in a bow that all have to speak, that all have to flow naturally, quickly, gracefully, and regardless of crazy string crossings, it has to be super even. There's exceptions. There are probably places where you might want to lean in a bit to emphasize some phrasing, like the very first trill. Yeah, it starts with a trill. I highly recommend you do what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 weeks, which is practicing Nathan's trill drill every day. All trill drills, he has 3 of them. I'll add the links to the email. I think I had his trill drills linked in the video, the first video that I did, but I'll try and link them again here. Those trill drills are magic. Hi Milo, I think Milo's getting tired of this. If you haven't listened to Kirsten Liang's tutorial, listen. His trills, I swear his trills are superhuman. They are incredible. I'm a little annoyed that he only plays the first few measures of this. I think he plays like the first 20 measures. I want to hear him play the whole piece, and he sounds incredible. He also demonstrates one really good practice technique I like, which is to start with one note and then add the next note. And just make sure the 2 notes sound exactly the way you want them to sound before you add the next note. So if I leave out the trill for now, see, I'm starting at the frog each time because that's where I'm going to be starting in real life, because you got 2 measures in one bow in real life, right? My 4th finger wasn't ready, so I couldn't quite make it in time. And that's where your double stop opportunity comes in. So adding one note at a time keeps you honest. It keeps you from getting sloppy. You can also do the same thing in reverse. If you're just doing the first 4 measures, you can start with the 4th measure, the last note, and then keep backing up 1 note. Just make sure you know which bow you're starting on, up or down bow, so you don't learn it with the wrong bowing. And it keeps you from also getting sloppy with what might look like a passing tone to you. An unimportant note that isn't part of the real melody. Except I feel like with this piece, every single note is important. Every single note is part of the melody. It's all, even though it's fast and noodly, it's all a melody. And I guess, that brings us to what's the mood that you want? What's the musical style? What do you think is going on? What are you imagining? What's the story you're telling? Or what's the scene you're setting? Or what is the movie that this is a soundtrack for? And you have to think about that even when you're thinking about mechanical technique. So for me, to me, this is kind of like a cross between birdsong. I mean, there's something very, to me, there's just, it sounds like a lot of birds singing, but it also kind of sounds like a fairy waterfall with splashing droplets, catching the light and casting rainbows, sort of very magical, and butterflies. I swear there are butterflies in here. You may hear something entirely different, and that's fine. Actually, I'd like to know, tell us what you hear in this piece. For me, though, the magical birds and rainbows and butterflies and fairy waterfalls means we can't bang our fingers down. We can't. That, first of all, that ruins the magic. I don't think you can have magic with banging fingers. Magic wands, you don't bang fingers on a magic wand. And you also can't, it translates to the right arm too. You can't be heavily energetic with the string crossings, you know. You have to be more subtle, careful really to not let the bow cross further than it needs to, which is really your arm. You can't let your arm move more than it needs to, because that will weigh things down and it'll make things a lot more difficult. So a minimum, you don't want to be tight and still, but you want to lightly move as far as you need to move and no further. One way, I think I've talked about this in one of the other videos, is I think of the string. If you look at, we're going to pretend my bow stick is the string. If you think of a north face of the string, and an eastern face of the string, and a western face of the string, when you've got a string crossing, especially repeated ones, as you look at your A string, you can be on the north face. Even better is to be on the northeast face, going to the string that's towards the east. And when you cross to the E string, instead of being full on top on the north face of the E string, hit the northwestern face. So you're almost aiming at the space between the strings as your bass position, and that way you just have to rock a little bit to get to each string. And you can pay attention to this as you practice what Nathan calls note groupings, and some people call rhythms, where you play 2 notes at a time. And that way, concentrate on using a minimum of notion. And it teaches also your left-hand fingers to play, since you're only thinking of 2 notes at a time, and kind of almost taking a break in between, you're teaching your fingers to play quickly and lightly. And then you can do 3 notes and 4 notes. So let's see, 3 notes. You can also do in reverse. Because the first time I did long, short, long, and this one was short, long, short, long. And you can also do permutations and combinations of 8ths and 16ths. So you can do 2 16ths and 2 8ths. And you can do 8ths, 2 16ths, 8th. See, that one I had kind of a heavy string crossing, too much. That one was better. And then 2/8 and 2/16. And did I do the last one? Or so that was 3 fast notes versus 1 long note. And so you're paying attention the whole time to the string crossings and also to light and prepared fingers with as little extra movement as possible. We do run into one problem here, and that is when you're practicing this, as I was just doing, pretty slowly enough to really be able to control it. Then you can't really do the printed bowing, which is 2 measures and 1 bow. And the logical answer is, okay, just do 1 measure in a bow, which is what I did. And the reason that's still a problem is that changes some of your string crossings, which should have been on a down bow, to an up bow, and now you're using different muscles to control that. And then when you get up to speed and play it in real life with the real life bowing, then suddenly you're faced with totally basically backwards bowing for half of it. And so one answer to fix that problem is to practice all the things I just said all over again, starting up bow instead of starting down bow. And then you're covered either way, right? So try it all, see how it goes, see how far you get. I think the more sort of variations you do for a small group, 4 to 8 measures, the easier those measures end up getting than when you take away the variations and just do it as printed. Suddenly everything falls into place. Even if you only get the first 8 measures all week, but you get them so that you're doing them exactly the way you want them, that's terrific. That's 8 measures you hadn't learned before, and if you learn them so that they're really well done, that will make the rest of the piece, even though the notes are different, the bowings are different, everything's different, but it'll make the rest of the piece easier because your fingers already know how it feels. So pop some questions into either the Facebook post or into the email or both. Pop them into the Facebook post and then send a group email saying, hey, I have questions, and then we'll all go look for them. And happy practicing, and see you soon. Bye.